Alright guys, we just got back from watching the midnight screening of Men in Black 3. As you can see, we got some of these cool posters they were giving away for free up there. And overall, before we get into the spoilers, I'm just going to say I enjoyed the movie.
I'm just going to ask you a question. You and the viewer, which one is that? That's my question. Which one is that? Because we all know which one that is. A good guess. I say that's a decent guess. We all know which, but when you get the posters, you don't really know which one's which. So I'm going to ask you.
Yeah. It was kind of different than I expected because I avoided a lot of spoilers by not watching trailers for this movie. When I would see it on TV, I'd fast forward the DVR. I just really went out of my way to not know anything about this plot. So I was kind of surprised with the way it went. Yeah. Without giving too much away, I'm just going to say that.
This guy does not like spoilers. He does not watch trailers. I love trailers.
Yeah.
This guy does not watch trailers.
I try and avoid all of that
he
stuff.
Does. No spoilers.
I thought the comedy was, okay, and just watching it the first time, I thought it was decent, not as good as the others, but I thought it was good in its own right. It was a nice addition to the series. And I think this is one of those movies that once it's on TV over and over again, people are going to love it, and they're just going to accept it like Men in Black, like we do all the others. So that's my thought on the movie. I would recommend this movie that you go see it.
Now, I kind of thought myself that it was better. Like, I thought the second one wasn't as good, but I definitely thought this was better than the second one. So, it didn't have all, like, the cameos and star power they tried to put into the second one. There's more just like a story here, which you can get into. Yeah. It needs to be a story when it involves time travel, for God's sakes. It better be a good damn story.
Yeah. So, I would say you recommend this one?
Definitely I recommend this one.
So that's our thoughts on the overall movie, and now we will get into the spoilers of what happened. So from this point on, there will be massive spoilers. So just going off of memory, the movie starts out and we see there's this prison on the moon where they keep like all these really hardcore criminals. And this lady brings a guy a cake. So they say, okay, he hasn't had a visitor in 40 years. We'll allow you to go see him. So she goes in, and it's Boris the animal. He's the main villain of this movie. And she gives him a cake, and inside is some kind of like little critter bug. It crawls in his hand. We saw this in 3D. Part. Yeah, and I thought this was a good 3D part. Like the way it crawled into his hand and opened up, I thought that was really cool.
Did you mention that we just saw it in 3D?
Just now.
Only just now, yeah. let everybody know. Let's just make the point. We did see this. We did see the 3D version.
Yeah, and I didn't even know it was in 3D until we got there.
Me neither.
Yeah, so he gets some kind of critter in his hand, and it allows him to shoot out these spikes. That's his main power. He has these regenerating spikes he can shoot out. So he escapes from the moon, and he goes to New York City, and he's missing an arm from a fight with Kay 40 years ago. He was the one who put him in prison. We see Will Smith and Kay, Jay and Kay, driving around doing their thing, and what happens here? They just bump into him or something?
Well, yeah.
Because he's after Kay. He wants revenge on Kay.
He has to go get the time dial. The time travel dial from his nerd. Since he got it from his father before, but now his son hasn't since it's been 40 years.
Yeah. He wants to get a time traveling device so that he can go back in time and kill Kay and not lose his arm. He's really pissed about losing that arm.
Yeah.
So he threatens Kay, he gets the device, and then he goes to see Kay in our time, Tommy Lee Jones, and he tries to kill him, but he escapes. And Will Smith, somehow, he does succeed in his time travel mission because Will Smith is talking to Kay on the phone, and then all of a sudden, Kay disappears. He completely disappears. Any mention of him is gone. Will Smith goes to Men in Black headquarters. No one's ever heard of Kay.
Yeah. Now, we should say that beginning of this, also had a couple of new characters. First of all, Zed, we all know from the first two, is dead. He's dead.
Yeah.
And there's a new character involved, comedian, actress. I cannot remember her name for the life of me, but she's been in so much other stuff. But
yeah. No, you're right. I completely forgot they killed Zed off. That was something that happened in the very beginning. But so Will Smith can't find anything about Kay.
Yeah.
He tells O about it, and she realizes, you're talking about a guy who died 40 years ago. So he did die in the past, but Will Smith, for some reason, remembers. He goes to get a time-traveling device from the guy's son, the same place Boris the animal got his.
And he's like, he mentions right before he tells Will Smith, Jay, what to do. He's like, you were there. That's why you remember. Why? Because he asked the guy, Jay asked the kid, he's like, why do I remember Kay? And he's like, oh man, you were there. When you get back, you have to tell me. And that's all you get. Like, it's the question mark. But I think we get it now since we watched the movie.
Yeah. So when he meets the kid, I thought that led to a lot of funny scenes.
Yeah.
Just the way he was talking about the time traveling and trying to explain it to Will Smith. He's like, tells him he has to jump off the Empire State Building, and he's about to do it. And he's like, oh, and maybe you need to do this and this, and he's like, I'm not really sure. So
it's like 1969-ish.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So he jumps off and he ends up back in time, but it's a really cool sequence where he's like almost eaten by a T-Rex. Then it's like the Wall Street crash, the Depression, and then he finally gets
really funny
70s.
part is like when they're going through time, when he's falling and he has to go through time, and it ends up like you said at the Wall Street crash. And you see, it's funny if you notice like at the scene where he's still falling, there's someone else, there's other people falling next to him.
Yeah, the stockbrokers.
Because we all know what happened there because we know what they're doing. Stock market crash.
So he ends up back in the 70s and he runs into the past K.
1969.
Yes, 1969. Josh Brolin. However, there's a couple things I want to mention here first. Before he goes back in time, he has a partner. Because there was no K, his partner was Will Arnett. Now, I really thought that this movie, because I didn't know anything about it going in, I thought it was going to have a lot of comedy scenes with Will Arnett as Will Smith's new partner. That doesn't happen. He's there for like 2 seconds and leaves.
It's like one scene, really.
And another thing you might be interested in knowing before you see this is Tommy Lee Jones is hardly in this movie.
He's in the beginning?
Yeah, a beginning fight scene when they go to the Chinese restaurant and a scene at the very end of the movie at a diner. Besides that, it's all Josh Brolin. Tommy Lee Jones doesn't do crap all in this movie.
Yeah,
So, yeah. But... So he meets the past K, he tells him, what's going on, why he's there. At first he doesn't believe him, but then he comes to believe him. And he explains about Boris the animal, and they go on this adventure to try and find him. We meet a bunch of different aliens. I think Bill Hader from Saturday Night Live plays a version of Andy Warhol. That was pretty funny.
That was.
He said, I can't tell the women from the men or something like that.
He's like, please get me out of here.
And they also did, you remember in the first one when they show like aliens they're watching and it's like Rocky or Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah.
They did that
on
for
the
a little
screen.
bit. And it was the only one I
too.
noticed was Lady Gaga. But
she's like the only one really big because there's a bunch of other pictures below them.
Yeah.
And then it was like, took the little small ones, put them on the bigger screen, and like, you see like big ones, Lady Gaga. Like there's a joke right there, but I'm sure there was others. We just couldn't see them because it was so fast.
Yeah, I'd watch it again though for sure. But
yeah,
I just think it's cool that they did that like they used to do.
I
stuff
like that
from the
too.
past.
I like that too.
So then what happens? They're on the hunt for this Boris guy. Boris actually talks to past Boris, so now they have to fight 2 of these guys.
There's a comedic scene there because they were trying to fight each other, saying like, "You got your arm off." Well, I'm the perfect one because I still have my arm. It's like,
Yeah. And I guess we should go ahead and explain that they're a race of Blogadites. What were they?
I thought it was Bogladites.
I can't remember.
Bogladites.
But there's some kind of race where they exterminate planets, and the ArcNet, whatever it was called, that Kay developed in the 60s, that is what they used in the Men in Black in the present, is what prevented them from destroying our world.
Yeah.
So they're back to prevent Kay from ever doing that and losing their arm, of course.
And in the future, he was the last and only Bogladite, too.
If that's even what they're called. We could have just made up a word here. But yeah, so in the future, he is pretty much extinct, his species is. So he comes to the past to try and prevent his species from going extinct. And Will Smith has some other scenes with Kay about how he doesn't know who his father is, which is a big spoiler towards the end of this movie. They meet a little alien guy who can tell what's going to happen. He can predict the future in all these different circumstances.
He knows all time dimension from each dimension. He knows everything that occurs from each time from each dimension, and it's all in his head. And he doesn't know what's going to occur until something else happens, and then he knows, okay, this is what's going to happen next. Since that happened, this happened, because it's going in a time frame.
Yeah. So he was a pretty cool character, I thought, and he is the one who develops the ArcNet. So they need him, and they take him with them, and they go to NASA, where Kay has to put the ArcNet on top of the rocket ship that goes into space, and then it sets it off. So they get to NASA, where the ship's about to go off, and they run into this black guy who is the colonel of the army, which I thought was funny because before Will Smith went back in time, the guy who...
The kid?
Yeah, with the time-traveling device, he said, be careful because it wasn't good for your people. I'm just saying it's much cooler now, was his exact words.
Talking about skin color.
So Will Smith actually gets pulled over by the cops because he's black, and he gets treated differently in the elevator because he's black. But then when they get to NASA, the colonel is a black guy. So I thought that was kind of a strange thing for them to put in this movie.
They reference his skin color and the time being, but they only made like 2 scenes of like that occurrence. Everything else, the rest of the movie was just fine, completely fine with everything being. They didn't want to push that envelope too far. It's only a PG-13 movie.
Yeah. Although Will Smith said shit quite a bit.
So did Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
So it's a funny part though.
They get to the rocket ship. They gotta stop it. The little alien guy who has future powers shows the colonel what's going to happen, so he agrees to help them. They go up to stop this alien invasion. They get in the last fights with Boris the animal. Will Smith actually fights Boris the animal from the future, and he pushes him off. He does this cool scene where he gets shot with the spikes, and then he pushes him off the tower, and as they're falling, he goes back in time just a few seconds, and he memorized the pattern. So he attacks him and pushes him off while he's shocked that he missed all those spikes.
Very good scene. It was smart.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. However, if he's fighting the Boris from the future who also has a time-traveling device, why didn't he just go back in time? But, I'm not going to get all nitpicky with that. But, yeah.
Depends on which reality they were in, which time dimension they were in. Maybe he did it in another
maybe
alternate universe.
He saved himself.
Maybe an alternate universe, another one.
But, so then Tommy Lee Jones defeats the other Boris, the one from the past.
With
he loses
2 arms.
his arm. Yeah,
But this time he loses it.
Yeah, he gets rid of his arm, he blows it off, and then he's able to place the device on the rocket ship, and everybody's saved. He meets the colonel after the mission's done. He thinks Jay has already gone back to the future, so he's talking to the colonel, and Jay is watching him saying, his goodbyes. And then the monster comes out, Boris again, and the colonel saves Kay's life, takes a spike to the heart and dies instantly, and then Kay kills Boris like he should have done a long time ago. And come to find out, a young Will Smith gets out of the Jeep, and the colonel was his father, so that's why he never knew his father. And Kay flashes him, so he doesn't have this horrible, traumatizing memory of his dad getting killed. So Kay actually protected Will Smith throughout his entire life.
Yeah.
Which I
Proof
guess
that
if
he's
you
been
watch...
known. Proof that he's been known since he was a kid, that Tommy Lee Jones, or whatever, Kay has known Jay.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen the first 2 movies, so I'm not sure if I rewatch the first one, if that's going to mess it up. Because it seemed like Kay met him for the first time in the first movie. Yeah. So I don't know how that would play out in the trilogy, but...
In my mind, I'm thinking that's still okay, because he doesn't really act like... He acts like he always acts. Like in all the time, like Tommy Lee does in all the movies, just like non-caring, nonchalant, like this is how it is. Yeah. So it kind of makes sense to me he would act that way again. Like, he obviously, he mind-wiped him, he remembered mind-wiping him. Why wouldn't you act like he's never done it before? It makes a joke from the first film better when Jay asked him, "Have you ever mind-wiped me? Tell me the truth. Have you ever mind-wiped me, Kay?"
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And I was also thinking, because they did little things like the Lady Gaga and all the other stuff, the little tiny aliens and all those were in this movie, I think because they did that, then they obviously watched the first 2, and they, made sure that everything clicked and worked with the storyline. So I thought that was really cool. So I'm sure it works fine. So they save the day. They end up at a diner. Back in the future, K is alive. Tommy Lee Jones, the real K. Jay's sitting next to him, and they're joking around, and they go to leave, and then we see that the alien who can predict the future is there, and he says, "This is my favorite moment in human history." And then he says, "Unless it's the one where K forgot to leave a tip," and we see an asteroid coming towards Earth. But then K comes back and leaves a tip, and the asteroid hits a satellite instead.
Explode up.
That was it. That was the end of Men in Black 3.
There was no spoiler at the end of the credits.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I think this was just made to be a trilogy, just to leave it off here. I think maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy Lee Jones is getting pretty old, which is why I thought it was going to be Will Arnett. But, it's been, 10 years since the last one? Something like that.
Oh my god.
And I'm glad we finally got a third movie. I was really looking forward to this one. Not as good as the others, I have to say, but I think it's good in its own right, and it's a fine addition. And I think that once people see it a few more times, it's really going to start to grow on people, and they're going to really like it. So, yeah, I have to say I like this movie, and that's really it for me.
Yeah, I think with the time travel aspect, we'll have to go and watch the first one again, and if it really coincides with each other, if they can mesh together like it makes sense, I think it's a great movie. As long as it makes sense for the first movie the way it happened. That's why I like it a lot. And like I said, I thought it was better than the second movie myself.
Yeah, so that's our thoughts on Men in Black 3. Go check it out. Leave your thoughts on the movie in the comments below. Get your free posters.
Guess which one that guy is.
And, yeah, that's it, guys. So thanks for watching. Bye.